For the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call.
Trustee Blower.
Yes.
Trustee McGurran.
Yes.
Trustee Young.
Ma'am.
Let's start with public participation tonight. Individuals who wish to address the board must speak from the podium. State their name and address for the record. Points should be made clearly and concisely within the 5-minute time limit. One person's time may not be yielded to another. Comments should be directed directly toward the board with courtesy and respect, and any responses from the board will be delivered in like kind. Tonight, first, Kitty Karastan, 2706 Moeller. She wants to talk about Ross Development.
Good evening. I'm here to make 2 items of concern for myself. And I don't think I speak just for myself, but I'm speaking as a 46-year resident of Ross. We built our house new in Dry Run 2 on the corner of Moeller and Mike Hill. Our sons graduated from high school here, and these are our concerns. We would like to remain in Ross if we become unable to stay in our home. Although our spirits remain young, our bodies are aging, and we cannot afford the $500,000 condominiums at the top of Mike Hill. And we would like, as Ross has developed, to give consideration to some condominiums. I'm not talking Section 8 residences, but to condominiums that may be more affordable for people like us. We have been lifelong educators, and we made a decent living, but we do not have accumulated wealth. And that is a concern for us, that if we need a condo, we will either have to go to Fairfield and Hamilton, and that is not our preference. But right now, there is nothing for Ross to offer us. And secondly, I know there has been discussion. Quite frankly, I think the development plan that the developer of the Brown Farm property was overly ambitious. But there are some things that should be considered. I think the senior condominiums, more affordable price would be wonderful. The other thing that we would like to see in Ross is a sit-down restaurant where meals can be served, not a sports bar or a fast food establishment. We enjoy them, but sometimes you just want to sit down and have a meal. And I'm not talking about an expensive restaurant. I'm talking about family-oriented type fare, not necessarily having a liquor license. I know that's a whole nother can of worms for you, but a nice family sit-down restaurant. So those are my concerns. Condominium housing for moderate income seniors when they have lived here their whole, married life almost. For my husband and I, we are on 56 years now, but for 46 of these years, we have lived here. Our children have grown up here. My boys like to go to what they called the Whippy Dip over here. They could go on their bicycles. My younger son got his first job at the donut shop. And this is a boy who argued with his brother about whose turn it was to unload the dishwasher. He was 12 years old. He got a job washing the pots and pans on Saturday morning in exchange for pizza at the donut shop. So that is my concerns, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan York, questions?
Dan York, 4246 Oriole. And on both those notes, I want to look at the city of Rising Sun, Indiana. They have a thing down there called the Who's Your Boy, Who's Your Girl facility. There's a couple, 3 buildings with apartments. Some of them are studio, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments. Then they also have some condominiums on their property. It's government regulated. Bob's down there. He's been there for 3 or 4 years, and he's already maxed out his rent at $486 a month, and they pay the utilities. So something to think about. As far as the restaurant, I couldn't agree with you more. Somebody said something online about McDonald's. No. All right. My questions are for one of our trustees, Mr. Blower.
Yes, sir.
Did you initiate the BCI investigation?
Yes and no.
Okay,
As a board, we agreed upon it.
but you initiated it.
As a board, we agreed that it needs to be sent up for somebody outside our scope to investigate it. Yes, sir.
Okay, did you approach Officer Stoppel about her presence at Elda on 3rd shift? Did you?
About what? That I?
About her being there and what she was supposed to be doing there, I guess?
Not at all. I don't know where you're getting that information.
So you didn't ask her anything about anything? Is that what you're saying?
No, I made a statement that I see her in the morning when I leave Ross at 2 a.m. That's it.
So did you say something to her?
Once again, no.
Okay.
It's called casual conversation.
It's also called not going through the proper chain of command.
And what is that? You're going to make a statement. What is that?
That is, if you have a problem or a question about what any officer or any fire department personnel are doing, you go to their chief and you go through them first.
Did I say there was a problem or something? In casual conversation, I stated when I leave at 2 a.m, I see her running radar. That's a conversation. That is not making an accusation of any sort. Maybe the way you see it, but you're wrong.
Do you believe that you alone have the authority to do such a thing?
I have no idea what you're talking about, but I would say,
Going to an officer without going through the chief?
again, I have no idea where you're getting this, and no.
Okay. Do you have a vendetta against?
Okay, let me stop you there. We're not going to have me on trial like I've done something wrong here. If you want to talk.
I'm going to ask questions.
And I'm going to, at this point, I'm going to stop
I
answering.
want to.
I'm going to stop answering until you run out of time.
Well, good for you. Because this video is going to show exactly who the hell you are.
Watch your language in a public meeting, sir.
Yeah, well, I think I've said enough.
Janice Edler.
Hi, Janice Adler, 1864 Millville Shanton Road. I just have a couple questions, and it's about the BCI, but the results are back, correct?
We have not received the results.
But they've been decided.
We have been told that they have made a decision, but we have not seen,
And when do you
Results.
receive those? Do you know?
I hate to say when,
That's what I'm-
that's up to them. I call them and ask them frequently when we can have that.
So it's not on public record that I could go down and look it up, or you could?
Not that I'm aware of.
Curious.
I talk to the investigator regularly.
So, no, it's
I have-
not a matter of public record.
Not to my knowledge, it's not. Within the last week, it's not.
Okay, well, I would think if they settled it, it's just a matter of them going through the paperwork and the procedures for it to come.
And they will call me personally when it's done.
Written results, you are going to
Make a
make
public
them
statement.
public.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, that's all I want to know. You'll make them public to the Cornerstone and the Journal where they wrote bad things. Now they have to
It'll be made
fact them.
It will be made public.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
It's in the best interest of us,
Right,
the township, not to say anything that
Until,
could come back on us until we.
right. Okay, that's all I want to know. Thank you.
Ellen Yordi? About the FBI Academy.
Know your business. Hi, I'm Ellen Yordi. I live at 2941 Lake High Road. I just want to let everybody know that our police chief, Bert Roberts, attended the FBI Academy Associates, Inc. for 10 weeks these past months. This organization is a nonprofit international organization of 14,000 plus senior law enforcement professionals dedicated to providing our communities, states, countries, and professions with the highest degree of law enforcement expertise, training, education, and information. It is the strongest law enforcement leadership network in the world and is dedicated to strengthening the rule of law around the globe. Members are graduates of the FBI prestigious National Academy program involving all states, countries, and over 8,200 law enforcement agencies. There's over 54,000 graduates have completed the FBI NAA program. The FBI NAA program makes up the highest 1% of all senior law enforcements in the world. They are the best of the best. I am so proud to say that our very own Ross Township Police Department has such a graduate. I'd like to congratulate Chief Roberts, and because he is a graduate of this organization. I'd like to congratulate you, Chief, and I hope all of you that are here tonight spread the word, tell your friends, your neighbors, that Ross Township has one of the best law enforcement officers in this area. Congratulations, Chief, and I look forward to follow a more detailed report in the local Cornerstone newspaper by the trustees. Congratulations. There will be a follow-up article, won't there?
We'll give them the information, assuming they print it. Yeah. I don't see why they wouldn't.
But you will give them
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
your word?
absolutely. They will. I will call the people that have requested that information and make sure. And the board would like to congratulate Chief Roberts as well. I've done it personally.
thank you.
It's quite the accomplishment. We're very grateful and blessed to have someone of your character, professionalism, and leadership in our police department.
It was a great opportunity. Thank you very much. Good to be back.
Yep. Good to have you back. Sergeant Rogers was the first in line for that one.
A second.
I am so sorry. I'm here.
It concerns the Burns property. Since that developer keeps extending his contract, he keeps getting the seller to extend. We passed zoning. He's not grandfathered anymore, is he?
Grandfathered to what?
When we did the original zoning, it didn't pertain to the Burns farm
Right.
because it was grandfathered. Now, because he had a contract. The fact that he keeps renewing a contract, is that void? Because then we could pass.
I don't know that he's resumed the contract. Nobody's contacted us
Well,
to tell us that he's resumed the contract, but they don't have to.
contacted you about what?
About resuming the contract or extending it.
No, the contract has nothing to do with you. It's been extended. He doesn't have she didn't sign a 5-year contract with this guy.
Okay.
I don't know how long she signs it for, but I know for a fact it's been extended. Every single time it comes, or right before it comes, date comes, he goes there and it's an extended. Don't ask me. But I'm wondering if that's the case, is he still grandfathered? Or can we pass the zoning? Because if you read the land use, tough, right? That's his property.
We do not control zoning, right?
No, but could we put the zoning vote back on so we could control it?
Well, that would be another referendum. I mean, that's not something we can do. We can, if it's done, I think, is it 10% or maybe they raise that of the, however many percent of people would have to ask for a referendum on the ballot to have that done. Then it can be
We
done.
have to find out if the grandfather, I'll find that
I
out.
mean, as far as the land use plan goes, I guess we can visit that.
Yeah, it's just-
That's something we can do.
The land use was the same as zoning. Well, zoning was much more detailed.
Yeah, yeah.
I was thinking we could maybe put that back on, and that could help control that property.
You'd like to see us do something with the land use plan?
I'd like to see it, something needs to be done there. I'll tell you, I'm gonna tell everyone here. Something needs to be done there because when she's old, she's gonna die and her kids don't even live in Ohio. And they are gonna sell that, piecemeal it out to the highest, but they are not gonna care. And then we're gonna be in trouble. That's why we have to be proactive on it. And I'm willing to help you guys if you want me to. But that's what's gonna happen.
Okay.
I mean, I've dealt with these people, I know them.
I will
Only a few of them.
make a phone calls or we'll make phone calls and find out if there has been an extension officially, because we haven't been told that. So,
Well, he doesn't. Contract isn't good for years. And find out if he's grandfather. Don't ask him,
I know who to ask.
but ask about the grandfather.
I'll call him tomorrow and we'll see if we get an answer.
Thank you.
Yep. Procedural actions.
Clarify something for me. When Janice was talking, she said that you don't have notification about the
ECI?
PCI. Weren't you waiting for that information before picking a police chief of fire department?
We were waiting for information within that report, yes. And we got the information that we needed
So you
to make a
had-
decision. We do not have the report. Absolutely not.
And you went on word
Yes.
and went forward with the police department.
Not the police department, the fire department.
Fire department.
Chief Johns was in no way
Implicated.
implicated with anything. And that came straight from the investigator.
You were waiting for the ECI report before you moved forward.
If we did do something, we would have no fire chief because our fire chief wanted to retire and didn't want to go past the 6th of April. So we had to make some kind of a decision. So we made a decision. Right or wrong, we had to make a decision. So we have a fire chief now that can go on. And that's where we put it. That's where we're going to leave it. Now, as far as officially getting a paper saying all the investigation, as far as the police department, fire department, the road crew, the office workers, we're all cleared. We don't have that yet, but we had to make a decision, so that we did.
So you went on a wing and a prayer.
No,
No.
because we did talk to him verbally.
We went,
Verbally.
we went on a verbal affirmation from an investigator who has been with BCI for decades.
Got a handshake, got something.
Yeah, we did, back here. What are you suggesting?
Okay.
Email.
That was a decision that the board made.
That's your decision.
It was basically an unofficial report verbally from the BCI.
And the Hamilton, and the Butler County Prosecutor's Office.
Clearing everybody.
Yes.
Okay.
We have to wait. We had to wait, but we had to have a chief.
You have to make an argument of it.
Right, okay.
As long as we understand that that verbal unofficial report was that all these people were cleared.
No email, no nothing.
Nothing written, no.
Nothing in writing.
Procedural actions, move for the adoption of motion number 24-049 to dispense with the reading of the minutes from March 7th, 2024 regular meeting, March 11th, 2024 special meeting, March 18th, 2024 special meeting, and the March 21st, 2024 work session. Need a second?
Got it?
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes. Move for the adoption of motion number 24-050 to approve the minutes of the March 7th, 2024 regular meeting. Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes. Move for the adoption of motion number 24-051 to approve the minutes from the March 11th, 2024 special meeting. Need a second?
Got one?
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes. Move for the adoption of motion number 24-052 to approve the minutes of the March 18th, 2024 special meeting. Need a second?
You got
Second.
one? Got two of them.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes. And move for the adoption of motion number 24-053 to approve the minutes of the March 21st, 2024 work session. Need a second?
Got one?
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes. Move on to reports. Fiscal Officer Julie Joyce Smith.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone. For your review and consideration tonight, I have the certifications of purchase orders issued since the last meeting and the certifications of checks written since the last meeting. We also have for you to review, and just to review, is the receipt export. It's the one with the blue banner on it, and it would show you all of the, actually, there's two in blue. That's Trustee McGurran, you're looking at something else, but there's
Dark blue.
another, there you go, dark blue. That is just all the receipts that came in for the month of March. Then I have for you management reports, keeping in mind that we're 25% through the year as of March 31st. So there's a revenue summary report and there's a fund summary report. As with no surprises, the revenues for property tax collection are much higher in the general fund, the road and the bridge, which are inside millage buckets. I've not done an analysis yet, but I should have that for you at the work session. I'm going to do a look back probably 3 or 4 years to just show you what the increase has been. We did receive additional funds because of the new levy for the police, the new police levy. So everything in that series of revenue buckets seems to be good, and we're moving forward. So there's also an appropriations summary report for you listing all the expenditures through March 31st. Again, we're 25% for the year. I've reviewed it. I don't see anything that looks to be out of sorts. Now that we're done with permanent appropriations, we have some carryover that I will disperse into funds as needed. And then finally, we have the new report, which is the appropriations supplemental report. This is the report that shows you how I have potentially moved a little bit of money around within each fund. And I need to find that so you can sign off on it. So as soon as I find it, I'll pass it around. It shows a permanent, when I was entering permanent appropriations, I made a 3-cent error and had to correct it. So you'll see a 3-cent error correction there. But everything else where there is an amount moved, there's a corresponding amount gained. So everything's a zero net with an exception of that correction on the 3 cents. So that is for you to review and sign. Also for you to review and sign is the First Financial Bank credit card attestation for February. And that is for President McGurran to sign, but you all feel free to please review that. And then finally, the bank reconciliation for March 31st. Earlier this week, Trustee McGurran asked some questions about the opioid funds. And we have been receiving opioid settlement funds since 2022. We currently have approximately $11,000 that we've received to date. I have budgeted that we're going to receive, I believe, 7,800 for this year, but it's not something we budget as far as appropriations because we don't have any expenditures at this point for it. We've not been given a whole lot of guidance. The emails that come out on the opioid distributions are just 50, 60 pages of legalese. They're horrific. We get 2 different distributions. One is through Janssen. I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head what the other one is tied to other than it's the one that Auditor Yost negotiated. And because we have a police department, we are subject to those disbursements. But again, we have $11,000 to date and some change. With little or no guidance, I'm hesitant to spend or to allow any expenditures to come out of it until we know exactly. There is a reporting function to it. As Administrator Kyle will attest, we get these long, painful emails that basically, when you read through them, say, if you've not spent anything, you don't have to report anything. It's kind of a nightmare, but we're going to be getting this money for a long time. So at some point down the line, when we have a significant amount in a fund, we're going to have to figure out how to spend it. I've heard some rumors from other trustees, but I don't know anything off the top of my head we could potentially spend those funds on.
Are we waiting on guidance or are we waiting on need?
Well, probably waiting on a significant amount to amass before we can do anything substantive with it. At this point, you know, I know our fire department spends money on things like Narcan and EMS supplies for treating folks. I know our police department spends time and resources arresting. We've had to clean up a cruiser because of a fentanyl spill. I mean, there are things that we're impacted by on a daily basis with those 2 departments. But until we get a little bit more guidance on how people are spending the money, and maybe it's a conversation, the Township Association meetings to start asking other townships, how are you spending this money? If so, how are you spending it? Some of them have big law departments that might have done some of the heavy lifting and can give us some ideas of how we can spend the money. I believe that school resource officers might have some opportunities to spend money with some maybe drug training, but again, that's speculation on my part.
So since the word opioid comes into effect, how about a dog?
There'd be some long-term, I don't know if our current 11,000 would take care of it and the training for the handler for that dog. So, and I believe those dogs are pretty expensive.
Like $30,000, but it's something to save for.
Well, we could save for it. You know, I'm not opposed to saving for a rainy day. That's right up my alley. So, I applaud that. But at this point, it's conversations we can certainly have, but uh, what I'm saying is my best guess is your best guess. And I'm always talking to other fiscal officers and asking them questions about how they're doing things. This is something I could put on a list of, hey, how's everybody spending their opioid money? But again, I don't believe we have enough to do anything that's going to really make an impact at this point. In 5 years, absolutely, we might. So, I mean, I am also under the impression that there could be more settlements that could potentially come our way. So who knows what kind of money we might be getting down the line. So if you have any questions about any of the reports that I've provided, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's coming up for legislation. But I didn't want to jump ahead in case you had questions about revenues, fund summaries, appropriations, or any of that interesting stuff. Coming up, you have legislation in front of you. This is more of a typo on my end. When I provided you the permanent appropriations, I made a $30 typo. And so we need to correct permanent appropriations by $30 in the road district fund. This is to their benefit, it doesn't go against them. But I want to make sure that those numbers match our actual amended certificates. So we need to correct those appropriations. And then finally, for your consideration, we had discussed at the last meeting, potentially using ARPA funds for the landscaping project at intersection US 27 and 128. And then also we received a bill, and I believe I paid already the Venice Garden Playground mulch, but it's in the same vein. So I'm recommending that we spend some ARPA funds on that. I can do a corrective utility to correct that payment and take it out of ARPA funds. The reason I'm strongly recommending this is we have to allocate the remainder of this fund. And you have in front of you another report that's got a lighter blue banner on it, and it tells you where we currently stand. We currently have $65,212.84 in our current ARPA fund. We've already designated from that $65,000 the $12,000 for the retention bonuses for administration and road department, since they were not subject to grants for first responders. So the board decided last year that they would do that. So that money has already been earmarked, which would leave us with the 52,000 left to designate. And we need to get this appropriated. We need to get it spent ideally by the end of the year so I can report that all the money is gone. So that's why I'm recommending that we, instead of using the TIF money, I'm recommending that we use the ARPA funds because we need to use it now. I'm also making a recommendation, if those items are determined, the garden club project and the mulch, that would leave us 43,000. And there are some other things we can do with it. However, Superintendent Buelak would probably be happy to have the 43,000 applied to the current paving projects for this calendar year. And what I would recommend is we put that first and foremost after the after the county commissioners. There's 273,000 or 75,000 that the county is going to kick in. My recommendation is that we kick in that 43,000, spend it, and then go to the road department and the Paul's budget for the remainder of the road projects. That's just me making a recommendation, because if we can spend these in larger chunks, it's just easier. Well, it's easier for me because I have to do the reporting, but it gets it gone. I know that's not grammatically correct, but I would like to see this ARPA money gone and not hanging around. So those are just things for you to think about. Kick around.
Anything else?
That's it for me.
Okay. Purpose: in order to financially account for a $30 revenue correction fund number 2141 Road District must be amended in the 2024 financial ballot or budget. This resolution amends that fund. Move for the adoption of resolution number 2024-012, amending the revenue in a fund and requesting an amended certificate of estimated resources from the Butler County Auditor. Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes. Purpose authorization for ARPA project expenditures for landscaping at the intersection of US 27 and State Route 128 and Venice Gardens Playground mulch is necessary. This resolution authorizes those expenditures. Move for the adoption of resolution number 2024-013, authorizing expenditures from American Rescue Plan Act funds. I need a second.
You have it.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes. Purpose, approval to pay the bills. Move for the adoption of motion number 24-054 to pay the bills as presented through the fiscal officer's certification of purchase orders. Need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes. Department reports. Administrator Lori Kyle.
Good evening. First, I'd like to congratulate Chief Johns on his recent appointment.
Thank you.
I look forward to working with you in
Forward
this
to
new
working.
capacity.
You and the board. Appreciate it.
Second, I would like to point out that opt-out letters for the Community Electric Aggregation Program should have reached all eligible residents and small businesses. The opt-out period ends April 15th. And I have received some phone calls, so I do know that they are being received. I was able to follow up on the information about the grant for possible conversion of streetlights to LED, that funding. If OKI is able to get that funding opportunity, it won't be until 2025. The contact I had said to start paying attention towards the end of this summer, early this fall, to see if that funding opportunity will come to fruition. Also, for the board's reference, there is a nuisances update in your packet. The trailer at 4222 Oriole Drive later on in the evening for your consideration will go into a nuisance abatement. And from multiple angles, first would be a dangerous structure. They'll have 30 days to secure the structure or remove it. And second, nuisance abatement regarding excessive vegetation and accumulated debris. They'll have 7 days to rectify those conditions. Also for your consideration is a resolution to make some minor changes to some of the personnel policies. The first action that the board would be approving, however, is the Lexipol personnel policy extraction. So it's the policy as it was in Lexipol, simply taken out of the PDF and put into a Word document. So you'll be adopting that policy as it was in Lexipol. Then there are some recommended corrections. One is regarding probationary periods. Probationary periods are referenced several places in the personnel policy. My goal within the personnel policy is to say things once and refer back to that. So the corrections to the revisions to the personnel policy references are to do that, to steer people back to where the probationary period is defined. The revisions are in red for your reference. And the next is the insertion of the time clock policy into the personnel policy. And the final is after legal review of our drug-free and alcohol-free workplace with the legalization of adult use cannabis. It's the suggested revisions to that policy. And finally, for your consideration is a motion for our fire chief to continue his education with a fire protection technology course. This is to get your master's, correct? So utilizing the educational expenses reimbursement policy benefit for employees. Do you have any questions about any of those items?
I do not. Anything, questions for Lori?
Have none.
No.
Okay. Anything else, Lori?
That's it.
All right, thank you. Purpose, a summary of personnel policies and procedures is necessary to assist Ross Township employees in answering questions they may have regarding township operations. Move for the adoption of resolution number 2024-014, adopting a new Ross Township summary of personnel policies and amending various policies within. Need a second?
You have one?
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am.
Purpose, the township administrator has provided evidence of nuisance violations to exist at a property on Oriole Drive. This resolution declares that property to be a nuisance and orders its abatement. Move for the adoption of resolution number 2024-015, declaring a nuisance for accumulated debris and/or excessive vegetation and the existence of an insecure, unsafe, or structurally defective structure at 4222 Oriole Drive, ordering said structure to be abated, repaired, secured, and/or removed, and certifying abatement expenses to the Butler County Auditor for assessment. Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes. Purpose, educational expenses reimbursement for Fire Chief Christopher Johns for a 3-credit-hour fire protection technology course towards his master's degree in fire executive leadership and public administration. Move for the adoption of motion number 24-055 to approve educational expenses reimbursement of $1,050 for Fire Chief Christopher Johns for a fire protection technology course payable following the guidelines as set forth in the educational expenses reimbursement section of the benefits and compensation policy of the Ross Township Summary of Personnel Policies. Need a second?
Yes, you have one.
Discussion? Roll call?
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes.
Thank you.
Fire Department. Chief Christopher Johns.
For the board, I'd provide you the monthly report. That's all I have for tonight. We did a total of 117 incidents for March, 66 EMS calls and 51 fire calls. We did receive mutual aid on 3 different EMS calls, 2 from Hanover and 1 from Morgan Township. And I just want to say thanks to Chief Roberts, your officers yesterday helping us on the structure fire. It's
Thank you.
a pleasure working with you guys. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your help.
Chief. Road Department Superintendent Paul Bulek.
Thank you. I just have an update on this year's paving contract. We have a new contractor this year. They're not new to the business, but we haven't had them for quite some time. It's Barrett Paving. It has been Jurgensen for the last several years. it appears that we're toward the end of the contract. They start wherever they want, but looks like we're going to be getting our paving done probably August or September instead of June like we have been doing. But Herman Road, we have a culvert to replace ahead of that. So April 22nd, we're going to be shutting down the bottom section of Herman Road here for probably 3 days to replace the culvert. And then we have another one on Davis Road, but I don't have that one scheduled yet. I'll let you know when I know when that's going to happen. That's all I have there. There's some legislation here about I guess you guys are requesting a speed study on Lehigh Road to change the speed limit in front of Venice. Yeah. From School Road up to the curve there in front of that subdivision. So I have the paper here, and that's your legislation talks about that. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Paul. Consideration for legislation purpose. The Butler County engineer is responsible for performing all traffic engineering studies on behalf of Ross Township. Upon increased traffic flow and through this resolution, the board requests a study to consider the continuation of the current 35-mile-per-hour zone speed limit on Lehigh Road to a point beyond Venice Crossing Drive to be determined by the Butler County Engineers Office. Move for the adoption of resolution number 2024-016, requesting consideration of the Director of Highways for reduction in the existing prima facie speed limit on Lehigh Road in Ross Township. Need a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes. Police Department, Chief Burt Roberts.
Thank you. It's good to be back, like I said, once again. It was a pretty busy month for the month of March. We had a total of 1,233 calls for service. Of those calls for service, 12 of them were accidents, went to 14 domestics, 1 drug activity, had 2 OBIs, 2 shots fired, and 20 suspicious vehicle/person calls. Of those, we also had the self-initiated ones. We had 414 business checks we did, and 299 vacation checks and 174 extra patrols. We wrote 56 citations, arrested 9 adults and 3 juveniles for the month of March. I just did a quick check of the numbers because I've been advised just how busy they were since January. So I did a quick study or check of the numbers for this quarter, reference going back the last 3 years. So far to date, we've had 3,148 calls for service. The same time frame for 2023, we only had 1,800, and in 2022 we had 1,979. So you can see how much our calls for service have drastically increased in this quarter over the last few years. So very impressive about how busy this police department's been since I was gone. And once again, and I was going to mention it later, but I'll just say it now, the kudos for this police department, how they stepped up, especially Sergeant Rogers and everybody else that stepped up in my absence, just showing everybody what a tremendous police department they have here. And they just do a great job and didn't miss a beat. I know there was times it was a little bit stressful for them, and I understand that, and I can't thank them enough for doing what they did to allow me to go to this training, but I couldn't have done it without them. So I can't say thank you enough to the officers that we have here and what a tremendous job they do. So with that being said, I would also like to recognize 4 of the officers that on separate incidents while I was gone. I'm sure everybody's seen on social media and actually was on the news, the Marathon gas station where the car was stolen. Officer Little did a lot of detective work looking into this. Great job on the investigation. He actually ended up making an arrest on it. The person is at the Boone County Correction Facility down in Kentucky. The car has been recovered. He gave a full confession to everything. So Officer Little, I have a long letter that I think I gave everybody here that Sergeant Rogers typed up, recognizing him for what he did and the investigation. Officer Steppel did a fantastic job being very proactive. One night she saw something that looked suspicious to her down there by Angelo's. Turned out that there was a few people that were trying to break into that facility back there. And with the help of Officer Hale and Madison, they did a fantastic job in making arrests and preventing a break-in and entering of that area there. So once again, I attached the letter that Sergeant Rogers presented, and they've all been given a copy of the letter as well. And so that they can also given it to Administrator Kyle so that they can put it in their personnel file just for their records. And since this just happened yesterday, I wrote up something for Sergeant Rogers on the arson that took place down the street. I'm sure everybody has seen that once again. I got a few phone calls on it, but they did a fantastic job responding to it, investigating it. For just give me the Reader's Digest version. The subject initially started the fire back there behind Angelo's and Center Mass. It spread. Obviously, multiple fire departments had to come out. Well, before we got there, the subject ended up going down to Crosby Township and rammed a car into a house, and that house caught on fire. And well, actually, he started the fire at that place. He ended up stealing a car, going back up through Ross Township and everything. Kudos to flock cameras, because flock cameras once again showed what a valuable asset they are for law enforcement. Using the use of the flock cameras, the flock cameras hit on the car up in Trenton where the subject ended up being located and getting arrested and found drugs and other items. But once again, they did a great job with mutual aid and working with other agencies and flock camera systems and how beneficial they are and a tool for law enforcement. So I just want to give a shout out to all the officers on those multiple incidences. And the burglary that took place a few years ago over on Outpost. I'm not sure if anybody's paid attention to the news, but it's made a lot of news nationwide with the South American gangs from Chile coming up here and breaking into houses and stealing jewelries and all that. So that took place here in 2022, I think it was. And we recovered some evidence and some DNA, and it's been submitted, and Indian Hill ended up making an arrest on it, but it turned out to be one of our suspects was involved in that. So we were able to close out our burglary and make an arrest on that. So I just want to recognize Officer Profit on that. He's the one that's been involved with that whole investigation. And once again, that's a nationwide issue that's taken place and showing that Ross is not exempt for any of these issues that take place. So just want to give a shout out to all the officers for an outstanding job and showing once again to the public what a professional organization that we have and how self-sufficient we are and can work well with others to accomplish the goal. And for those that don't know, Morgan Spencer and Sean Stamper were just sworn in. I know this was supposed to be on tonight's agenda, but due to some circumstances and trying to get some family members here for the swearing in, I appreciate Trustee McGurn coming in here so that we can make this happen for them. So they have been sworn in. They've started their FTO program. So thank you very much. And last but not least, I've been contacted by Jack Tremaine, who used to be the captain here. He was recognized in the state of Ohio. He received a Valor Award. I think it was in 2018 for an outstanding job that he had done in Ross Township. I think it was involved in a shooting where he ended up tracking the suspect down, running through the woods and stuff, especially at our age. But he's reached out to us, to me personally, and asked if I would have an issue because he's retired, even from Dearborn County now, so he's no longer working now. But he has an interest in purchasing his firearm that he had when he worked at Ross Township. I've been giving a lot of thought about this. I told him I will support this. I have no issue with it. I mean, he's going to buy whatever the cost is for a new gun we're not going to be out anything at Ross Township. It has sentimental value to him. I understand it. I mean, they give out that Valor Award once a year. It's pretty prestigious. He's earned it. And I have no objection to if we want to let him purchase that firearm. I've spoken with Dawn Frick, and she didn't seem to have an issue with us selling that firearm to him, and couldn't find out or find any legal reason for why we weren't allowed to sell the firearm to him at replacement cost. So that's all I have.
Before he would pick that up, any thoughts of engraving something on the weapon?
We could do, and we had talked about doing like a ceremony and making more than just here's your gun and moving on. So I think it would be fitting to to put his badge number or something on there to make it a little bit more personable for him and recognizing him for his years of service and what he did for Ross Township. So I think that would be a fantastic idea.
You know anybody?
I know a few people, but no, I'm sure we can find somebody that can engrave it. So if the board is good with that, then I will make a phone call and we will make it happen and get the ball rolling. So next meeting, I guess in May, if we can get everything approved, if that's an option for us.
I'm fine with it.
I'm okay.
Same here.
Perfect. That's all I have. Short and sweet.
Thank you for the letters of accommodation or commendation that you've given. I appreciate what the officers have done, but it starts from the top. And thank you for the leadership that you've shown to them. It's flown or flowed through them.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Township business, old business. Decision needed on repairs to the police cruiser. We've seen the cost for the repair, and we've seen the cost for a new engine. So it's about 50% more for a new.
It was about 12, I think, for the new one.
12, low 12 for a new engine with a 3-year, 100,000-mile warranty.
Correct.
Versus repairing the top end of an engine.
For 8,000.
For 8,000, which I know a little bit about, but not much. That's a lot. So we probably need to come to a decision on what we're going to do with that.
The sooner the better, just so I can get a car back in service here. Yeah. So, I mean, it's already torn down. I mean, it shouldn't take them long to do that. Knock on wood. Hopefully nothing's floating out sea that's going to delay things here. But yeah, I mean, if we can get so I can move this forward, that'd be fantastic.
Which route did you want to go?
Do what with him?
Which route did you want to go? Top end or complete?
Well, I'm not mechanically inclined. I mean, the best I can do is replace the chain on your bike. But David Little, who has all those certifications, he's in agreement with the.
So like a long block instead of a short block?
Yeah, I have no idea what you just said.
I have no problem with the going into the long
So,
block.
I mean, initially we were in agreement to go with the 8,000, but it makes a lot more sense because we have the warranty and you don't know what you're going to get with the 8,000, that it's not going to cause some other issues when you don't. So I think looking at the big picture and long haul, it seems to be an agreement to go with the 12,000.
The way I understand
So,
it.
yeah, I mean, I honestly, I really don't know what that means as far as the short block and long block. I have no clue what you just said, so.
A short block is, it's just a block. You put everything else back on it. Long block comes almost complete, except for a few things like your starter motor, stuff like that.
He might be able to answer that better than I can. So I mean, he's seen what the mechanic shop said needed to be done here or whatever. So, and David Little did too. So
I talked to Mr. Waldrop and he cautioned us a little bit because that's only the top end of the engine that's getting done, not the lower end where the pistons and stuff like that are. So if there's anything bad down in there.
Right.
And it happens in.
You're doing the top end on that motor.
2 months.
You're going to have to go through the bottom end at least to flush it out and clean it out. Make sure there's nothing down there.
And the idle time is what's been the hard part on that.
It's got a lot of hours on that.
Yeah, the idle time was.
Throw the motor in it, man. You'd be better off in the long run.
The idle time
Get the car back.
was,
Mr.
Walter said was about 200, equivalent to about 270,000 miles.
Right. Yeah.
That's a lot of miles on.
Do we know
Any
who's
engine.
going to be doing, are we going with
They are.
Waldrop or are we going with Pullman? Need to kind of know which purchase order to put in front of.
Preferably Waldorf because they already have it broken down. Otherwise they'd have to put it back together.
Have to put it back together, charge us for what he's done. And then-
Right.
And tow it.
And then take it to Pullman.
Right. And who knows what they would charge.
So, yeah, I would suggest replacing the engine on it. I think long-term, that's a better, if it was my car, that's what I'd do.
Will we be purchasing the engine regardless from Jasper?
Yeah.
Okay, so that one stands. Do we need a revised quote from Waldrop on the whole? Because he was giving us an initial quote. Do we?
He gave me a quote. If there's a supplemental quote or something else, then I haven't seen it.
Well, okay, because we have a $8,000 quote from Waldrop, but I thought that was. Okay,
That was to repair it.
right.
Right.
12,000 was to
We have
replace
a
the ignition. or the
$9,000
engine.
quote from Jasper, a $3,500 quote from Bowman.
Right.
So I just kind of need to know who and because we need to do,
I'll call Jake tomorrow morning.
Motion need to include an exact amount.
no, but if, because it exceeds the 30, was it?
2,500,
If they approve a motion,
If you by motion just approve
the work.
the wording with the understanding that whatever the quote comes back to, it is going to be whatever that's going to be, and you understand that. If you do a motion tonight to go with Waldorf to do these things and we'll get a quote from him, then Lori can then sign the purchase order because you approved it all by motion. Does that make sense?
It does, but I'd like to do it with an amount on it. I'd like to know the amount.
What if you pick a not to exceed amount?
We do that.
after we get the amount, we would just need 2 trustees to stop by and
Or two
sign
trustees
stuff.
could
Would you rather see
hop
the
in and
amount
sign it.
before we just?
I thought it was somewhere between 12 and 13, but
I just want to make, because she's saying there might be potentially something else. I want to make sure.
okay.
Okay.
Throwing in another 3,000.
Well, then you guys can just come in and
I
sign
mean,
the
the days,
purchase order.
I'll be in town tomorrow.
That's fine. We can.
Dave will be in town.
So who is going to request the quote?
Yeah, just once you got, and it's,
Bert, are you going
and you
to
feel
reach out
it's a
to-
proper
He
price.
said he was.
Just run with it.
Okay.
So, right.
Before we move on.
You said you were going to reach out to Jake, correct?
I will.
Okay.
I'll call him in the
Okay.
morning.
So have him
Text
reach out to
tonight.
Lori and send us the quote so we can,
Okay.
between us.
I'll tell him to send it.
Perfect.
Before we move on, I have an additional question for the chief. What about your 2 purchases from Trenton? Is that moving
So
forward?
that is still moving forward. They had to do some correction to their city ordinances that allows them to sell, because before it was they could only get rid of property or through auction, but they're redoing the wording in it so that they can sell us that property or that equipment, whatever you want to call it, those vehicles.
Still the departments once they get done.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Did we get engine hours on those vehicles?
He did send everything.
Yeah,
over.
he sent everything over. Don't ask me what they are, but he did give us all the
I don't know where I
information.
wrote them down at this time, but
Make sure they're not.
they weren't outrageous.
270 cents.
Actually, the
Like a lot.
the oldest one has got the least, and I'm just amazed that it's not been used more than it has, but
Okay.
Chief Carr said they're in fantastic
Yeah,
shape.
and he can give us all the maintenance and everything on them.
Continuing with township business, sale of unused property on Morgan Lane. We have some information on that. Keith, you want to?
Do I have it down here?
No. The property we're talking about is 4 acres at the end of Morgan Lane. It's behind Bearing Company. And that land was originally purchased for, I think.
Dirt to go to UDF.
Using for dirt to raise UDF up out of the floodplain. A while back, we wanted to know what that was worth, if it had any worth to the township, if it was viable property. I have somebody interested in it that I talked to today, and I think Keith has somebody interested in it. And we're going to find out how much we can
Price you go.
get with that. I think that'll be negotiated. I know what the one person has asked for. He has somebody else he needs to talk to. I think until that's all negotiated, we should wait to see what we actually are going to get from it. But it's in my mind fair, more than what we paid for it. So.
He said you.
And I think I think it gives money to the township to, do other things, put up signs or buy a new police car,
There you go.
pave more roads,
Something.
pave more roads or whatever.
And for clarity, the gentleman that keeps contacting me about every quarter, every 6 months to see if we're ready to go to auction with it. And he's just a local businessman that checks in every once in a while. I thought there was a third party, but I can't remember who it was. Once it's advertised, they may pop up.
And Administrator Kyle, do we have to advertise that? We do not.
Right.
That came from Dan Ferguson.
Correct.
We don't have to put it out for sealed bid or auction or anything at all.
No auction is needed, but the trustees would have to be unanimous and pass a resolution.
Okay. Go in there. So we can find out who, what the person you talk to, if they have interest in it. And then I guess we can, I think that's publishing. Okay. Everything. Okay. All right. Anything else from the board? Nothing. Page 4. Oh, man, sorry. There you go. New business. Anything from the administration?
No.
Anything from the board?
None.
Announcements. Tomorrow, April 5th, 2024 is Fire Chief Steve Miller Day in Ross Township.
We're laughing because one of our residents pointed out that you could say Fire Chief Miller instead of,
Fire chief.
yeah. So it depends on where you put your emphasis there.
Not the same person that encourages him to fire like an eagle, is it?
I'm not going to say anything beyond that.
A total solar eclipse will occur on April 8th, 2024, and be visible in Ross Township between 1:53 and 4:25, with the maximum totality at 3:08. Consider allowing extra travel time that day, making sure gas tanks are full, and be aware that cellular service might be overwhelmed due to an increased number of visitors to the area.
Well, it's gonna be cloudy, so I don't think we're gonna see it anyway. It just get dark.
Local libraries allegedly have them if they still have them in stock.
Cracker Barrel has them.
And make sure if you're buying them that they're the real thing.
Yeah.
Or your retina.
Cracker Barrel may not be the real thing.
I would reach out to the
You
libraries.
can use your tinted windows in your car.
I brought a welder to it.
The lady that did my face on Hamilton gave me before I left, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Nope. Correspondence. The Ohio Division of Liquor Control sent notice that all Class C and D retail permits to sell alcoholic beverages in Ross Township will expire on June 1, 2024. The Ross Township Board of Trustees has legislative authority to the right to object to the annual renewal of a retail permit and to request a hearing. After considering input from the police department, does the board request a hearing for any particular current retail permit holder or holders?
To my knowledge.
I do not.
None.
Okay. Butler Rural Electric Cooperative sent a ballot to vote for their 2024 Board of Trustees election. Each Ross Township trustee may submit their candidate selections to the township administrator by April 19th, 2024. She will then compile the results and submit the township's ballot by April 21st, 2024. Anything from the board?
None.
Topics for work sessions. This will be at our next work session, which is on April 18th. There will be discussion about the Venice Cemetery. We will discuss allocation of the remaining balance of the ARPA grant. Continued discussion on the Ross Hamilton JED 1. The replacement of the township sign at US 27 and State Route 128. And administration building solar tint quotes. Executive session, move the adoption of motion number 24-056 to retire to executive session to discuss the compensation of a public employee in accordance with Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1. Time?
7:09.
Need a second.
Got one.
Motion or discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Blower?
Yes.
Trustee Young?
Yes, ma'am.
Trustee McGurran?
Yes. That's it, folks. There will
Announce the next meeting.
be no further discussion. When we come out of executive session, the next meeting will be April 18th at 6 o'clock here at the Ross Administration Building. Thank you for coming.